We will start, so let the others join while we conduct the session. Good afternoon to all of you. So today we will be continuing our discussion on quality assurance, which we commenced last week. Right. Right. So previous day, I hope you got an idea, or you understood what are the main components of QA system. So today we will be going to discuss the further detail. Last session we discussed certain aspects, some of these components. The rest we will be discussing today. So last week we discussed SLQF, SBS, and codes of practice. So they are basically the documents which set the policy framework for quality assurance in the Sri Lankan higher education system. So today our focus would be on today I'm going to discuss the quality assurance. Now, specific quality assurance mechanisms adopted in the university, in the higher education system in the country. Right. So last week I did not give the slideshow. Today only I will be shared at the end of this session. I will be sending the slideshow to the to the SDC, so they will be sharing that with you all. Right. Right. So before I move to the quality assurance dimension, I would like to ask from you, right, just to recap. Now, now we discuss SLQF, SBSS, and codes of practice. Now, what is Sri Lanka Qualification Framework, or SLQF? In briefly, how would you describe SLQF? What does it contain? You can either talk or write in the chat box. What does SLQF mean to you? Yes. So how do you briefly describe the document SLQF? Right. Now, before you describe that, is it application of SLQF mandatory to Sri Lankan universities? Or is it a voluntary action that all state universities have to do? Is it a mandatory document to follow or voluntary? So that you have to
mandatory.
It is mandatory for the state universities falling under the UGC. It is mandatory, right? That document is mandatory, right? But for the non-state higher education institutes, it's not mandatory. It is it is a best practice for them to follow. But at the point of giving approvals for the new degree programs, the compliance to SLQF is assessed by the Ministry of Higher Education. Right. So what is SLQF? How do you briefly describe the term SLQF? So what does it mean? Now, last time we discussed about SLQF. So what are the areas of SLQF that we need to follow? Or what are the areas of education system that are being guided by SLQF? Yes. Now, based on what we discussed last time, what are the areas that are being guided by SLQF? Right. So I'm getting some answers. So you can write SLQF is a framework recognizing and acceding qualifications offered by the education institutions, right? So it is SLQF, as Chaminda explained, it is a framework for the various qualifications offered at the higher education level, right? So recognizing and accrediting qualifications offered by higher education system. So compliance with SLQF is an essential requirement. So it is guiding the development of the study program. So which dimensions of the SLQF that we are looking, which dimensions of the study program that are being addressed by SLQF? Yeah, let me see the answers. Yeah, so right. Nishaya said it's a threshold level qualifications the organizations have to, the universities and higher education institutions have to follow when developing the study programs, right? So is it a discipline-specific document or a generic document? It is a generic document. It's applicable to all the disciplinary areas. So it basically SLQF discusses. So these are the main requirements of SLQF. It specifies the entry qualifications, entry requirements for each qualification offered by the higher education institutions, and it guides the development of learning outcomes. So it identifies qualification descriptors and level descriptors so that when the learning outcomes of study programs are developed, they will have to ensure these learning outcomes fall in line with the requirements at the particular level of the qualification as per SLQF. So in the SLQF, qualifications are recognized from level 1 to level 12. Usually 5 and above are the university qualifications fall within the purview of higher education institutions. So entry requirements for each qualification, learning outcomes, and in order to assign the learning outcomes, volume of learning required. Now, when we discuss volume of learning, what are the areas that we have to consider when the volume of learning of a degree program is decided? So how do you calculate the volume of learning? What are the 3 aspects that we need to consider in developing the volume of learning? The learning outcomes are what is expected from the graduate at a particular level to possess in terms of knowledge, skills, and attitudes. So volume of learning. So what are the 3 dimensions captured when the volume of learning is calculated for a study program? What are the 3 areas? Yes. What are the 3 areas that we will have to consider when the volume of learning of a study program is calculated? Now, what is the connection between volume of learning and learning outcomes? Right. I'm getting answers. Notional hours for teaching, learning, and assessment. Very good, Nishaya. So, volume of learning presents the amount of work required in order to achieve the learning outcome. So, that amount is presented in terms of notional hours. This amount or the workload is requisite workload is presented in terms of teaching hours, learning, as well as assessments. Not only the self-study, right? Notional hours captures in a particular degree program what is the level, the total teaching, learning, and assessment hours. However, that is determined based on each and every course or module of the study program, right? Because study program consists of several courses or modules. So we calculate the volume of learning for each and every course or the module within that study program. So the third area is the naming of the qualification. Right, so Professor Govinda later discuss more details with you. Now, Sri Lanka qualification, now you have some idea. Then what is subject benchmark statement? So what is the focus of SBS or subject benchmark statement? So what does this term subject refer here? So what is subject? Now, are these documents generic documents or discipline-specific documents? Yeah, they are specific to the discipline. So here the subject refers to the specific discipline area. So subject can be medicine, subject can be accountancy, subject can be economics, chemistry, physics, sociology, etc. Right? So now, what does this document present? What are the main aspects or main areas covered in SBS? SBS captures what are the main area, what is the focus of SBS? Now, while having an SLQF, why do we need SBS? What is the connection between SLQF and SBS? Or how do you distinguish the two documents? Now, already you have said SLQF is generic and SBS is discipline specific. So, in relation to discipline area, what does it represent? Yes, so standard expected to meet in a specific subject area or discipline areas. Therefore, this will also be discussing the academic standards or the expected standards to be accomplished relevant to the discipline area. So therefore, when the learning outcomes are set, how do you set the learning outcomes to align with the discipline areas under the broad categories of learning areas identified in SLQF. SLQF, 12 learning categories are identified. In SBS, same learning categories are discussed, but relevant to the specific subject area. Therefore, when the teaching learning assessment is discussed, activities are discussed, the same mechanism is followed in the SBS. So in addition to that, we have codes of practices, so which prescribes certain best practices to be followed in relation to specific areas. Okay. The areas can be assessment of courses, conduct of peer evaluation, student evaluations, etc. So there are certain codes of practice developed by the Quality Assurance Council of the UGC, and even university itself can develop its codes of practice, right? So with that overview, we will now discuss internal quality assurance and external quality assurance, right? So now we will go to the topic quality assurance, right? Now, what do you assure, right? So any one of you, have you been subjected to quality, any review? Have you been involved in reviews? Any experience in reviews? Experience in the sense you may not have been served as a reviewer, but you may have been sometimes subjected to a review. Anyone who had been involved in a review? Subjected to review process? So what do I have to imply? So I have to assume that all of you have not, you don't have any experience in reviews. Am I correct? So you have to tell me at least yes or no, right? මෙතන ඉන්න කිසිම කෙනෙක් මේ quality assurance review එකට සම්බන්ධ වෙලා නැද්ද?
You mean the institutional review, right?
Right. Okay. So you have
yeah.
been
No. You mean the institutional reviews?
Of study whatever review, institutional or program level. What I don't mind the category of review, any sort of a review.
Not yet.
Not yet. So no, right. We have some experience, Yamuna. Yes. So Yamuna, what is the experience that you have in relation to review? At which level of review? Is it institutional based review or a study program based review? Right. So while Yamuna answers, right, let me see, institutional based review, right, good. Now, when we say assurance of quality, now we discuss SLQF, SBS and codes of practice, which sets the policy framework for quality assurance. Now we are going to discuss how this quality framework, how to implement this quality framework within the, within the higher education institutions, and how do you know that it is what is happening in the organization, what is happening fall in line with the requirements of this policy framework. So that is why quality assurance is, these reviews are conducted, right? So quality assurance is a systematic review of educational provision, right? Systematic review of educational provision in a university in order to improve its quality, equity, and efficiency. So when we say this systematic review, that review can happen at different levels. So as a whole, the institution can be reviewed, or specific study programs can be reviewed, right? Therefore, when we discuss institutional or study program level review, there are three areas that we need to consider. One is, it is an integrated planning. Now, what do you mean by integrated planning? These reviews are focusing on what we do as an educational provider, what we do to maintain the quality of the institution or the study program. Then it is an integrated review. So integrated review means it looks at how we know, right, whether this it verifies whether this provider of the education, whether they know the requirements of higher education system and whether they fall in line with these requirements. And also, this is a means of managing risk. That is, now institutions have to assess where do they stand. Then only that assessment is required for them to know where do they stand now, what is lacking, and what are the improvements that they will have to make in order to overcome the present deficiencies, right? So when we discuss quality assurance as a whole, there are several principles that we will have to follow. Now, principles means in a review, when we do a quality assurance review, whether it is internal or external, it is a mechanism for continuous improvement. Now, it's not like investigation done by police, right? It is not a special investigation carried out by a committee. No, the very purpose of these quality assurance mechanisms is to ensure that the study programs or the educational institutions are working towards continuous improvement. And in any kind of a quality assurance review, it will be an evidence-based review, right? It's not only we have to say what we are doing And we must also substantiate what we do with relevant evidence. Now, if we say, for example, we have designed all our study programs in line with SLQF. We have to map our study programs, our learning outcomes, volume of learning, entry requirements, all that with SLQF requirements, and show that we have complied with. So, likewise, we need to provide the relevant evidence, right? So we will have to bring the curriculum committee meetings to justify that, curriculum specification, program specifications we will have to present. So mapping documents that we have done, all these evidence we need to provide, right? So it is monitoring process. It monitors the outcomes against a set of predetermined standards. So in a review, always there is a set of standards given to you, and that review will be carried out with reference to these standards, right? And through that, we are taking responsibility for for what we do, right? So it develops, therefore, a culture of taking ownership for the educational processes in which we are involved with. So this review process can happen internally or externally, right? So what is the difference between internal quality assurance and external quality assurance? Internal quality assurance means it is a process of reviewing to what is this answer. Now, Chamin, you have given an answer. To which question have you given this answer? I'm not sure.
It's regarding the quality assurance activities that we have been involved in.
Right. Okay, good. So these are the quality assurance activities that Chamin is involved in. You are coming from, you are attached to a medical faculty. Am I correct?
Yes.
All right. Okay. So that's why these clinical audits and kinds of things are done. Right. So that is basically done as part of the internal quality assurance processes in the faculties of medicine. Right. So this internal quality assurance therefore refers to the internal processes developed within the institutions to monitor and improve the quality of the educational institution as a whole, as well as of its study programs. So in any university, there is a particular center, which is also a mandatory requirement for every state university to have a Center for Quality Assurance. The shortened form is CQA. CQA refers to mechanisms. The Center for Quality Assurance, previously it was known as Internal Quality Assurance Unit, but later I think the name change was done in 2018. It became Center for Quality Assurance. Now there's a circular issued, therefore it's a mandatory for the state universities. Under that circular, it has been made mandatory to have a Center for Quality Assurance. Now, Center for Quality Assurance is headed by a director. The director is appointed by the Vice Chancellor. So the director reports directly to the Vice Chancellor of the university. So this internal quality assurance, therefore, is the process through which it is the mechanism established in every higher education institution to set the internal processes to monitor and improve the quality of students' learning experience. External quality assurance means third-party reviews carried out on the organization or the study program. So it can happen, these reviews can vary depending on the unit of assessment. If the unit of assessment is the institution, now if the review is done on the whole University of Sri Jayawardenepura, then we say it is an institutional review. But it can happen at a particular program level, study program level. That is, the different qualifications offered by the university will be reviewed. So such study program based reviews are called program reviews. So these program reviews can of different nature. There are undergraduate programs, there are undergraduate internal and external. Now we use the term internal and external. Internal undergraduate programs as well as external undergraduate program, as well as there are postgraduate programs. So these study program reviews can happen at undergraduate level or at a postgraduate level. Undergraduate can be either internally conducted program or external programs, external degrees, in other words, right? Now, what is the connection between the internal quality assurance and external quality assurance? So for the whole internal quality assurance, as I mentioned previously, it sets the policy framework for quality assurance within a particular institution, and it monitors whether the faculties, institutes, units within the university are working in line with this policy framework, and it continuously monitors the study programs offered by the institution, by the university through the faculties or the institutes. So the Center for Quality Assurance is the apex body for quality assurance in the university. So it has to set the policy framework and monitor the quality assurance processes in the whole higher educational institution. Then in each faculty, now a university, if we take for example university consists of several faculties. Now some universities has faculties as well as institutes. Now if for example, if I take University Sri Jayawardenepura, it has several faculties. In addition to that, it has the Postgraduate Institute of Management, PIM, which is the institute. Then there are 11 faculties in the university, or sometimes there can be specific units like the external degree programs unit. So for each of these institutes, faculties and units should have a cell, right? Quality assurance cell. So that cell is expected to work under the direction set by the CQA. So if the institute faculties or units want, they can take that further level down. So in every department or in a study board, they can have a QA coordinator. So that this is the institutional mechanism for internal quality assurance within a particular university. And these are the responsibilities of this Center for Quality Assurance. So it is the body that sets the operational procedures, best practices, and benchmarks to be followed in quality assurance. So it monitors to see whether the respective faculties, units, institutes fall in line with that. So thereafter, this external review is a group of outsiders will come and see whether these procedures are in place, whether the relevant policies are in place, the relevant mechanisms are set, there are mechanisms of monitoring the quality, there is a proper process of obtaining approvals in the university. Likewise, they will be doing the reviews. So this review is a peer review process. Now, why do we say it's a peer review? This review will be conducted by a group of peers. That is, a group of lecturers, group of academics from other universities will come and review us. Right. So let me give you as an example. Let me show you the Center for Quality Assurance of University of Sri Jayawardhanapura. Now you can see this is the center, right? It explains its basic function here. So presently this unit is headed by there is a director, Professor Marasinghe. So you can see his message here, right? So it's there, right? Now you can see these are the policy documents developed by the University of, the various documents developed by this center, the university calendar, the bylaw to set the Center for Quality Assurance, policy manual for quality assurance, operating guidelines. Then we have a curriculum review committee at the Senate as a Senate subcommittee, which is also operated under the Center for Quality Assurance, the terms of reference for that. Then there are, in order to introduce common codes for the undergraduate degree program, there is a separate guideline. So likewise, the management guide for the administrative purposes of the university. Then, so the relevant documents which specifies the quality assurance policies and mechanisms of the university are included here. So its progress reports are presented here. Then the university level, a set of policies we have developed. You can later browse these documents. I have given the link. So these policies we developed in some time back when I was the director CQA. We developed all these policies. So we developed a set of policies. Over 20 policies we have developed. So you can see now these policies refers one on academic ethics and accountability, academic honesty, policy on administration, right? Then you likewise for each and every dimension of the every aspect in the university, the main aspect, not each and every, but for the main aspects, main aspects relevant to the educational provision of the university, there is a policy, right? So then you can see policies on curriculum approval, curriculum design, the teaching, learning. Likewise, there are policy documents. Right now, some of the policies like intellectual property, policy of equity, web content management are not directly developed by Center for Quality Assurance, but now GE Center, there is a Center for Gender Equity and Equality. It has a policy, so it has been adopted for the whole university. Same in the case of, we have Innovation Council in the university. So policy on intellectual property comes through that, but it is for the whole university. It has been adopted by the center. So you can see this center has developed a set of policies applicable for the whole university, relevant to each and every dimension, relevant to the educational provision of the institute. Now, within this broader policy framework, each faculty can have specific policies where they require specific attention. Then you can see there is this page on staff, so which it presents the details of the staff handling the Center for Quality Assurance, the director, the deputy director, as well as the various, why is that? Right. So, and also there is a separate section as to getting approvals. Right now you can see if an external, now if undergraduate study program requires to get an approval, for example, now when a new degree program is developed, or there are certain instances where even for an existing study program, UGC approval will require. Now, for example, if the name is changed, right? So if they are going to introduce a separate specialization, so in such instances, UGC approval is required, right? Now, there are, or that sometimes that can be a mere revision of curriculum. So here, the mechanisms are presented in this document by way of flow charts. They explain the steps that they have to follow, right? So that entire process is explained, as well as the application forms in this respect are provided here, right? So now, because if now you can see this is a form of, that is how to get approval. Now you can't introduce a degree program as you pleased. There is a specific process to be followed. So in this process, it is assessed by the Center for Quality Assurance whether these study programs comply with the requirements of SLQF, relevant subject benchmark statements, where applicable, the professional standards as well, right? Every university, you may not have, I know all of you are not from the University of Sri Jayewardenepura, it doesn't matter. You can go through the Center for Quality Assurance of your own universities, right? So you can see now this in this document in detail explains what is the process to be followed in this respect, right? So please browse through this document, either the University of Sri Jayewardenepura in your own university, but you can clearly see, irrespective of the university, CQA would develop the policies to be followed by the respective faculties, units, and the institutes of the university, and also the monitoring mechanisms established to ensure that the study programs meet the expected quality standards. So this approval process is also a particular monitoring mechanism established in the university. So these quick links are given, and also the certain documents that they will have to download when even to get the approval. There is a prescribed format. So these formats are being developed and they are being uploaded into the website, right? So now I hope you got some idea about how the internal quality assurance mechanisms are implemented. Right. Now we will discuss more detail the external quality assurance. So as I mentioned previously, external quality assurance can vary. The type of assurance can vary depending on the review, depending on the object of assessment. So if the unit of assessment is the university, then we say that external quality assurance review is an institutional review. But if the unit of assessment is an individual study program, then a program review is done. So these are the expectations of external quality assurance. It will instill the confidence. So now when a degree program or the institute is subject to a review, so that is a means of improving their standards. And these organizations be accountable for the work that they do. And it gives the opportunity for them to improve further and provide information about the quality that they claim. And also if they do certain new developments, so this is also an opportunity to showcase the innovative approach. Now, when the quality assurance is done at the IR level or even at PR level, this is the same this is the mechanism when we discuss assurance of quality. Quality assessment is considers 3 dimensions of quality. So firstly, criteria of quality. So under which criteria the quality will be assessed, right? So is it the curriculum development, or is it the teaching learning process? It is the infrastructure. So likewise, there should be criteria. Now these criteria refers to most important core aspects of a higher education institution, right? So where they are expected to maintain required standards. So those are the essential areas in the educational provision. So under criteria, there are best practices. Now what does best practices represent? Best practices represent the guidelines to achieve. Best practices are the guidelines given to achieve excellence under each criteria. Now, if you want to maintain the required standards in curriculum development, what are the best practices or the guidelines that you need to follow? So these best practices explain that. Then thirdly, the standards, right? Standards specify exactly how a particular activity should be accomplished. So in the quality assurance review, reviewers will be assessing the quality in terms of these standards, right? Assurance will be carried out, the review will be conducted with reference to the standards. So the higher education institution will have to present explain how they have achieved these standards and what sort of evidence that they could give to say that they have achieved these standards, right? Okay, right. So now in the IR manual was revised, right? So as per that, now there are the total number of BP stands for best practices. So I have given the BP, best practice. So now these are the 10 criteria. Under the 10 criteria, these are the core aspects relevant to the educational provision of a whole university that the review will be considering. So under each of these areas, there are specific best practices and standards. So best practices explain how to do something. What is the best way of doing something? Standards will see whether they have worked in terms of these best practices. So that is how the review will be done. So you can say altogether there are 107 best practices and standards. So in simply, at the institutional review process, the institute as a whole, if the institute is the University of Sri Jayewardenepura, so University of Sri Jayewardenepura will have to prepare a self-evaluation report and present how these areas have been achieved. So I will give a snapshot of that. Now, this is the example of a self-evaluation report. This is only a part of that report, particularly as to how this institute has complied with the requirements in the standard. So they will have to prepare this kind of a document and explain, right? So let me take you through the institutional review manual. Then I will explain a couple of areas, so then you will get an idea, right? So before I proceed, any questions or clarifications? Yes, now this is the latest IR manual. The initial IR manual was, we had institutional reviews. I think this is the third institutional review manual now we are using. So 2000, after SLQF was introduced, a new manual, this institutional review manual was revised and 2015 new manual was introduced. So based on the 2015 manual, all the state universities in Sri Lanka were subjected to an institutional review, right? So after the completion of the first round, now we are in the second round of the reviews. So based on the experiences gained through the first review, the manual was 2015 manual was revised, and 2023 the new manual was introduced. So you can see, firstly there is an introduction and all these things. Then it explains this higher education aspects. These manuals you can download from the Quality Assurance Council website. Now it explains the purpose, scope, process, all those things. So let me take you through this chapter 3, where these criteria, best practices and standards and sources of evidence is given, right? Right. So now what is meant by, now first section is the governance and management, right? So in your opinion, now as you understand, why does this review focus on governance and management? Now, usually when we discuss governance of institute in a university, what are the things that come into your mind? Who governs? What are the bodies involved in governing the university? Yes. What are the bodies involved in governing the university? Yes, so you must tell me the answers. Either you talk or write in the...
UGC.
Yeah. Read the answer.
UGC.
Yeah, UGC is outside the university, within the institute, within the university. Yes, good. Senate and the council. Yes. So these are the two main bodies in the university. Now, what is the difference between council and the university? Sorry, council and the Senate. Sorry. Now we have two bodies, right? Council and the Senate. So what is the role of council in the university and what is the role of the Senate? We have a dual board. Now what are the, right, I'm getting answers. Let me see. Right, Senate is academic matters. Yes, good. Senate is academic matters. Council is basically the administrative finance matters are handled by the council. So in the university, council is responsible for the administration, finance handling, etc. Senate is the body responsible for the academic matters in the university. So who heads the council and the Senate? Who heads the council? Vice Chancellor. Yes, so both are headed by the Vice Chancellor of the university. So Senate, the academics are represented. Council has Vice Chancellor, deans and appointed members, including the registrar of the university who acts as the secretary to the council. Senate is an academic body, therefore it is represented by Vice Chancellor, deans and all the professors and heads of department of a university, right? So this basically this governance and management refers to the way the university is being governed and management through the various bodies in the university. So in addition to council and the Senate, we have faculties, every faculty has a faculty board. Then there are various Senate subcommittees as well as council level subcommittees. Now, for example, I refer to you now, University of Sri Jawadanapura will have a curriculum review committee. In some universities, they call it academic committee, right? Different terminology you may use, but whatever the term you use, it is the main, it is the Senate subcommittee responsible for curriculum review of the university. So when new degree program is introduced, it has to go through and recommend to the Senate. When a existing program curriculum is revised, then they will have to ensure that it has fulfilled the required requirements in terms of SLQF, SBS, as well as the internally devised policies. So now curriculum review committee is an example of a Senate subcommittee, right? So now university has finance committee, leave committee. These are also subcommittees. Subcommittees of which body? They are subcommittees of now finance committee. I'm sure all of you have an idea. No, at least leave committee. You may have heard about that. There are also subcommittees. Subcommittees of which body? Senate or the council? Leave committee? Council, yes. Leave committee as well as finance committee are both subcommittees of the university. Council. So now when this process you can see starts with the first, now the main criteria is governance and management. So under that, best practices and standards are given. So when the best practices are given, best practices and standards are given, that governance and under that, specific areas are identified. Now it starts with vision, mission, strategic and action plan. Now that is the university's corporate plan or the strategic plan. So every university should have a strategic or corporate plan, different terminology, which specifies the vision, mission, strategic goals, and the actions planned under each of the strategic goals. So now, why should every university have a corporate plan or a strategic plan? What is the reason for that? Why should every institute have a plan, corporate or strategic plan? What is the reason for that? Why are we having a corporate plan in the university? Yeah, for growth, yes. So if you don't have a corporate plan, can you run a business organization without a corporate plan? Have you gone through the corporate plan of your university or institute? Yeah, because we should know where to go. What is the destination that we need to reach, right? That destination is given by the corporate plan. It sets out the goals of the institutions and how to reach towards these goals by way of strategies. So this plan has to be developed in line with the National Higher Education Policy Framework. So this plan cannot have anything which is against the national level, that is country level education and policy framework cannot be violated. So all what we do should align with that. And all, that is why when we do certain things, that is why we have to fall in line with the country level educational policies. But every institute should have a corporate plan. So then only we know what is the mission that we have to accomplish, what are the strategic goals and what are the strategies, and how these strategies are implemented by way of actions, right? So you can see here, first it explains the standard. So the one aspect the reviewer will be looking at
Professor,
when,
excuse me. Sorry to
yes,
interrupt you, Professor.
yeah, it's okay.
but-
Please ask.
Thank you. So, is there actually any, like, for example, there are certain institutions or even courses that have not yet aligned with the SLQF and the quality of assurance frameworks. So, are there any repercussions if certain institutions are not following these, particularly in the private sector? Or even in the state universities, this may happen. So are there any repercussions and ways for us to get them to follow these?
Yeah, the repercussion is it will impact the recognition of your study programs. Now, for the state universities, qualification framework application is compulsory. But for non-state higher education institutions, it's not yet mandatory. However, in the now when we have a national level qualification framework, the expectation is it will set the threshold level standards to be met by every qualification offered by a higher education institute. So when you meet those, only it will gain the recognition. So now, as of now, we have not started the SLQ. Now, what we at the moment do is we try to align. But in the future means now already the setup has been made, committee has been appointed, guidelines have been developed for SLQF certification. So in the future, SLQF certification is a must. Now at the moment we claim, but that claim level will be certified and given, yes, your degree is at SLQF level 6, level 7, like that. So when that certification is given by the university, by that certification body, then nobody will question that it will, because they do a proper review and give that certification. So then it is a license to operate at that particular level. So the body, that particular qualification get the legitimacy, legitimized in the eyes of the stakeholders, not only in the Sri Lanka, even internationally. When it is said now this has been certified by the certification body of the country, it is at particular level. So that is a means of getting recognition for the degree program locally as well as internationally. So that will
Professor, sorry, Professor, now, yes, I understand at the moment it's not really being, controlled, or there are no rules as such. But one day when things are more mature and more settled and standardized, do you think there'll be any legal repercussions for certain institutes? Not certain, but for all institutes?
If it is mandatory and if you don't fall
Yes.
in line with that,
Yes.
surely legal action can be made. Now, it doesn't mean that you are being taken to in front of court of law, but
Yes.
you're defaulting the requirement. So there can be provisions as to what actions the UGC could take. Now, unfortunately, the UGC controls only the state universities in the country.
Yes.
Non-state higher education institutes are not falling under the purview of UGC. They all
And also, Professor, we have this
Yeah.
this other issue of certain educational institutions which are being registered under BOI. So they are not actually taken as educational institutes, rather they're taken as business ventures. So will this be applicable to them as well? And then what can
now
we
this
actually-
that all has to be decided by the government. You can now it is the form of institution. If you are, like, let's say, if you try to if you establish an education institution under BOI Act, it's true, it is a business institution. However, it is educational matters should be governed by the National Higher Education Policy Framework. So presently this quality assurance, and not presently now, it has been debated for a long time, this national level
Yes.
policy on
Yeah.
quality assurance and accreditation. Due to various reasons, it has not been still not introduced in the form of a final law.
Yes.
So when it is introduced, it will have several provisions in this respect, right? So it doesn't matter whether you are a company or a partnership or whatever. What matters here is, if your business is education, those education requirements should fall in line with the national level policy frameworks on education.
That's what all of us actually believe, but unfortunately, at the ground level, I don't think the other stakeholders are of that view, Professor, because they want to maintain it, those institutions only as a business entity. They are not worried about the educational policy. Some of them don't want to be covered by this quality assurance, and so that is why I asked you the question, because I'm also working with private sector institutes, and certain institutes which have very good standards, but certain others are not really bothered about any of these actually. So that's why I thought of asking. Thank you very much.
That's a very valid question. So because ultimately now that is why these medical faculties, they were dead against this Neville Fernando medical school,
Yes.
right? Now the thing here is, it doesn't matter whether it is public or private. What matters is whether you do your main task, that is education, in line with the national policy framework. So all these non-state higher education institutes, in order to, if they want to offer a degree in the country, they have to get the higher education ministry approval. So at that point, they are
Yes.
subjected to a review. So I have also taken part in many reviews in the higher various national level higher education and institutes. So at that point, they are supposed to obtain that. So we examine all these things at that point, but they are not being subjected to a continuous review thereafter, like in the case of state universities. That's the problem. And also I have very bad experiences also, because I know how they have I don't want to discuss these things. I don't want to name anyone. I know they use a lot of pressure.
Yes, exactly.
Power, politics. There are so
Manipulation.
in order to get these approvals. So at that point, even when we disagree as reviewers, they even go to the extent of threatening us.
Oh my goodness.
I have subjected to such instances. Not everyone, but
Yes, true. Yes, understand. That's why actually I thought of asking you, because the practical side is sometimes very different to what we want to achieve, but we must try, as you say. Thank you,
actually,
Professor.
these are the national level issues that we need to deliberate. Unfortunately, insufficient attention is paid on these things, right? So now the other thing is, as I mentioned, everything you have to substantiate with evidence. Now this EE refers here to evidence, required evidence. Now you have to show the corporate plan and show that it has been prepared in line with the National Higher Educational Policy Framework, etc. Then now go to the second one, right? Second one is the university, the same heading. The next one is the university's organization, governance and management are compliance with respective acts and regulation. Now, University of Sri Jagadharapura or any state universities cannot do something which contradicts with the University Act number 16 of 1978, unless subsequent ordinance or amendments have been passed in this respect. So universities are being governed by establishment code, we say E-code, various UGC circulars, right, etc. So that is another requirement. This university, this faculty structure, all those things should fall in line with these requirements. So that is why, as an evidence, we have to show the organogram, the organizational structure, and the TORs of standing and ad hoc committees of the. Now, if you have now let's say, now I said every university has a CRC, Curriculum Review Committee or Academic Committee. So there should be a TOR. Now, hope you can remember when I explained to you this University of Sri Jayewardenepura documents. Now we have this TOR. Now CRC terms of reference. Now the CRC terms of reference means this is the document terms of reference of the Curriculum Review Committee. What is the responsibilities? What is the composition, functions, meetings, right? How to submit the documents? All those things need to be specified. So every university subcommittee, right? I think it right. So we'll have to have such a TOR. So terms of reference will explain what is the expected requirements, right? So then the next one is leadership and inclusive management. Now that is the leadership of the university is effective. They engage in participatory, systematic, integrative planning with the stakeholder. They engage with stakeholders. Now when you do the corporate plan of the university, you need to engage. You need to get the views of the stakeholders, right? You can't do it in isolation. You can't do that in a particular room. So you have to talk to your stakeholders. You need to know their expectations, right? And they will have to show that they have engaged with the stakeholders in doing so. So they will have to present what are the committees established with the university to get the views of to maintain a proper discussion among the senior management people, right? Whether there is a committee where academics and academics meet each other, right? So in the university, we have this academic administrative committee, right? So those committees, their functions need to be presented. So like that. Now this first standard is all about how the university is conducting its what is the governance and the management structure of the university, whether it is being guided by a proper policy framework developed through the corporate plan of the university, and the university has a set of policies, right? Has set now bylaws for the university, right? Policy formulation and bylaw. So they have to explain how these policies and bylaws are formulated, right? So if it is something to do with education, Center for Quality Assurance can do that. If it is something to do with research, the Research Council of the university can do that. So that policy formulation and approval process need to be presented. Then they have to explain how this is being implemented, right? So that the requirement 1.5 is how the policies and bylaws are implemented, and implementation is monitored, right? So that is why now probably you would have done this every quarter. The university, every unit in the university, faculty, departments, and relevant units have to report the accomplishment of the actions plan under the strategic plan, level of achievement of the key performance indicators, etc. Right? Then the standard operating procedures and auditing. So whether you have where university should have standard operating procedures. Now, standard operating procedures one area could be, now what are the areas that we are having, we should have such auditing mechanism. Now, some of you all said that you are involved in auditing. Now, what is a standard operating procedure? That is the manual which prescribes how a particular task is carried out. Now, for example, examination related. So there can be a SOP or standard operating procedure on examination, how to conduct examinations in the university. Who are the units involved in doing that? Who is responsible for the conduct of examination? It can capture paper setting, paper moderation, then the first marking, second marking. If the external verification is done, how to appoint the external examiners. Like that, specific SOP can be developed to capture the examination procedure. SOP can be developed for finance matters in the university, right? Staff leave related SOP can be developed. So standard operating procedures can be developed for areas where the university has to develop a detailed policy procedure that the university will have to follow, right? So you can see those things are given. Then how the resources are allocated in the university. Now, what basis the resources are allocated. Now, when you say resources, that's not only financial resources. It can be physical, hall allocation in the university, right? Staff allocation in the university, etc. Right? Then how the procurement is done. Now, this is what sort of a procurements. Now, university has, now government has a manual of procurement procedure manual. So the university can't do things violating this national procurement requirement. So depending on the type of the procurement, different procurements they will have to adopt. Now, certain things they have to go for national competitive bidding. That now we say tenders are called. So that is very high valued items. When you want to acquire high valued item or when a building is constructed, tenders are called. Now, if you want to buy items, certain items, they can go for this. If the items are of not for high value items, medium level items, they can go for national shopping. Now, if it is something that needs to be purchased from a particular supplier, now things like this software, maybe books, right? Then they will have to go for this direct contacting techniques, direct contact as the procurement basis. So all these things are explained under this standard. So I think now you will get some idea. Now this work norm setting, accountability of the staff. Now you saw that we have a policy on academic ethics and accountability. So that gives the broader framework within which the academic staff need to conduct their activities, how to decide their work norms, how to report on the work that they do, and what are the things that they could report. Likewise, we need to have certain mechanisms in the institution. The grievance handling, right. Now, this is another criterion 2 is on the strength and the quality of the staff, right? That is when you say staff, here the focus is mainly on the academic staff of the university, because if you want to maintain the quality of the university study programs, educational provision in the university, it has to be backed by with the competent staff. So this criterion 2 is on strength of the quality of the staff, right? So it captures the university HR policies, procedures, staff recruitment processes. Now, how do you whether you fill the approved cadres. If the approved cadres are not filled, what is the reason for that? What is the mechanism that you adopt in recruiting academics to the university, etc. Now, these activities of the Staff Development Center, now the CTHE program, plus now CTHE is a mandatory training that all of you undertake as an induction. In addition to that, regular continuous professional development programs need to be done because staff knowledge, skills, etc. need to be improved on continuous basis, right? So then that is all about the staff. Now from criterion 3 onwards, it is about the mechanisms, how to assure the quality of study program. Now at this level, the review will not consider each and every study program. Their focus is mainly on the policies and procedures set up in the university to ensure that the curriculum design, program development, teaching, learning, and all these things meet the expected standards, right? So when you refer these criteria here, you can see criterion 3 is on curriculum design and development, then teaching and learning relevant to study program, learning resources required, assessment. Now these criterion 3 to 6, they directly deal with the various educational programs, that is the study programs offered by the university. Those can be postgraduate, undergraduate or postgraduate degrees. Undergraduates can be internally conducted or external degrees. So these criteria are dealing with curriculum design, development, teaching, learning, things like that. Now here, main focus is on undergraduate because in the criterion 7, we can separate discussion on postgraduate studies. Therefore, criterion 3 to 6 will mainly focus on undergraduate level education provision in the university system. In the university, right, not the system, right. Now we will briefly go through that. Now you ask this question. Academic program. When the academic programs are designed, now you see, now the first standard looks at whether university has a policy and mechanism to ensure that program design and development adopts a participatory approach and takes into consideration local and national requirements, stakeholder needs, employment market signal, international trends, UGC approved reference points, right? Now you can see whatever, when the curriculum, existing curricula, the study programs, existing study programs, curricula are revised, as well as when a new degree program is introduced, they will have to ensure that UGC approved reference points such as SLQF, SBS have been complied with. So, you know, that is why university should have a policy, right? So that is why we devised in the every university, not in our university, should have a policy on curriculum. So in the University of Sri Jagadhanapura, we have two policies: policy on program and curriculum approval, implementation, etc., and another one on curriculum design, right? So now that is the starting point. So when these policy documents are discussed, within the policy documents, they will have to, these policy documents should refer to, now you can see, they have to take into account the qualification framework, subject benchmark statements. Those requirements are specified in the policy document, right? Now the subject benchmark statements, professional standards where relevant, those have to be where relevant, they have to comply with. Now, for example, medical degrees, they will have to follow SLMC requirements. So likewise, so university policy, every university should have a clear-cut policy on curriculum design, development, implement approvals, how to get the approvals, how to monitor, what is the frequency of revising curriculums, and if a degree programs to be discontinued, what is the mechanism to be followed. So all those things should be there. So now the reviewers will see whether we have such policy, and when these policies are developed, that we fall in these policy documents, fall in line with the national level reference framework such as SLQF and SBS, right? So I think now this is another important is published program specification. Now, I explained to you that every university should have an approved program specification template. So that is why now when this approval process is discussed, so under each of these areas, if UGC approval is required, there is a specific approval document. There is a documents devised by the Quality Assurance Council of the UGC. So in that case, they will have to follow they have to use the relevant application form developed by the Quality Assurance Council. So if it is a new program, there is a form. If it is a revised program, there is a separate form. Now, let's say that this revision doesn't require UGC approval, right? If it is existing existing degree program, curriculum is revised. So in that case, the university need to have an internally developed document, right? So then when a faculty presents the curriculum, when they develop the curriculum, they will have to use this document as the basis, and the whole curriculum, revised curriculum should be presented using this document, right? So there, this matching, which I showed you previous day, they will have to match and show that the PLOs of the revised study program. Revised means you revise the curriculum. Study program will be there. Same accounting degree program, but curriculum is revised. Same chemistry special degree program, chemistry honors degree program, but the curriculum will be revised so that matching, they will have to match and show, right? So now what is important here is when in the external review, they see whether the university has a published program specification. So if the Quality Assurance Council has already developed a document, you can adopt that. If that is not applicable, then you have to have your own document. So that is why if a new degree program is introduced, definitely it has to go to UGC and get the approval. Even in existing degree programs, if certain changes are done, structural changes, right? Now, if you want to upgrade a bachelor's degree to bachelor's honors, definitely you have to get the UGC approval. If you want to change the name, UGC approval is required. In such a case, even the revision would have to go to UGC approval. Then the UGC, the relevant Quality Assurance Council document has to be used. But if it is a normal curriculum revision, which is done on periodic basis, university can have its own format, but irrespective of the source of the document, that document should capture the whole program. That is program learning outcomes, courses, teaching learning methods, assessments of each and every course, and how they are being met. They have to show their alignment with the SLQF and SBSS, right? So now, hope you can remember, previously I discussed this concept OBE, outcome-based education. So outcome-based education, we start with the, so what is the starting point in outcome-based education? Previously we discussed. Now, what is outcome-based education in simple terms? Now, what is outcome-based education? Outcome-based education. Now, what is the outcome now we are looking at in a study program? When you say outcome, what is that? Outcome-based education. Now, we follow outcome-based education. So, outcome refers to, in the study program level, outcome means, what is
Learning
the
outcome.
outcome?
Quality.
Learning outcomes. Learning
Quality of the
outcomes
study
at which
program.
level? Yeah, outcome is the learning outcomes. Yes, learning outcomes at which level? Now we can develop learning outcomes at 3 levels. We can develop at a study program level, course level, or lesson level. So here, when we say when you say the curriculum development of a study program, which intended learning outcome? What is the intended learning outcome that we discuss?
ILOPs.
Can you repeat?
ILOPs.
I did. What did you say? I did not hear properly.
Learning outcome of the program.
Learning outcome of the program, or the PLOs. You can say PLOs, the learning outcome of the program, right? So now this review will definitely look at whether the university adopts a outcome-based education, because that is the basis for curriculum development, right? Now this is now learning outcomes. So you have to start with, what do you want the learners to know? That is, program level learning outcome should be there, right? Then assessment, learning activities. Then what are the teaching learning activities in the degree program? So the teaching refers to the pedagogy adopted in a degree program. Learning refers to the various activities you get how the learning activities you have to present to your student, right? Because student, everything cannot be taught. The student need to be engaged in the learning process. So that is why learning activities are given. So learning activities can be tutorials, can be practical sessions, can be reading, right? Can be writing reflections, right? Can be even an assignment, field study, etc. So depending on the nature of the course, relevant learning activities have to be developed. Then thirdly, the assessment approach. That is, finally, how do you know that the learners have learned or not? So this learning outcome-based education adopts a constructive alignment, right? That is, you start with the program learning outcome, then you decide the teaching learning activities and assessment approach. So when we do this, we generally do this for start from the PLO, then we go to the course and learning outcomes level, because curriculum means curriculum consists of several courses or modules. So every course or the module should have a set of learning outcomes which should align with the PLOs. Then course will be delivered in terms of set of lessons. So every lesson should also have a set of learning outcomes, right? So now the in this review, at the institutional review, they are looking at whether the university has a policy where they promote outcome-based education and student-centered learning. Now, what is student-centered learning means? The learning responsibilities transferred to the student. Student is actively engaged in learning, right? So it is not teacher-centered approach that we adopt in designing and development of curriculum, but an approach where the student is given the opportunity to actively engage in the educational process. So that is why we need various small group teaching activities such as tutorials, workshops, practical session, field studies, some activities where students can actively engage in the learning process. Some people call it learner-centered learning. So whatever the terminology, it is mechanism of student. You need to have certain activities where student will be engaged in the activity. It can be laboratory sessions where students will do testing, experimenting certain things, right? Computer laboratory sessions, right? Even in language learning, right? It's you must give various exercises for students on grammar, speaking skills improvement, writing skills improvement, reading skills, right? So it can be even role play. So many activities can be embedded into the curriculum design process. So I'm sure I don't have to go into each and every area. You can now get an idea about this process. Right now, Surang is asking private university, if you want to get degree awarding status or to introduce a new degree, you will have to go through the higher education ministry has a separate division, right? So you have to get the approval through that. So there is a particular certain requirements. So you have to present the detailed degree curricula, private university. Now, this again, it has two things. First, institute, establishment of the private institute, you need to get the approval. And in the institute, will be offering different degree programs. For each and every new degree, they will have to get the approval. So there is a separate mechanism, separate division, non-state higher educational institute division in the Ministry of Higher Education. So you have to contact them, then they will let you know the procedure. Then there will be an initial review process as well. Right. I think now you can read and understand this part. Now, postgraduate studies, research, innovation, and commercialization is a separate section. Now, this is the place where the reviewers will consider the postgraduate education in the institute, research activities, and the mechanisms. Now, sometimes you have this UBL cell. Then commercialization purposes, what is the mechanisms and incentives available? So in that case, what is the policy framework adopted by the university, right? So postgraduate studies, right? So now postgraduate studies are conducted in different ways. Now some universities have a separate faculty. Some universities, both the undergraduate and postgraduate degrees are handled by same discipline-based faculties. Sometimes there is a mixture of both. Central place like this, Faculty of Graduate Studies, plus certain programs are handled by the discipline-based faculties in the university. Sometimes there are institutes, like in our case, we have FGS, Faculty of Graduate Studies, through which the program or the postgraduate studies are handled. Then we have PIM separately as a semi-autonomous body. And also certain faculties handle some taught courses as well. So different structure. So, but whatever it is, that structure, whether there is a structure for postgraduate education, research, innovation, and commercialization of research. So whether there are bylaws relevant to the postgraduate education, and how the quality assurance is done of postgraduate programs. How do you improve the research culture within the university? Now, we, the University of Sri Jagadhanapura, we have a research council. So research council has developed various documents as well as incentive schemes. Then research grants, right? Research awards, all those, and also these policies, ethics review, right? ERC procedures. All these things are looked at the review, and whether there's a mechanism to disseminate and publication research. So what is the publication policy of the university, right? So how do you recognize the creative work? Likewise, certain requirements. So then distance education, if the institution is having ODL methods, distance learning, like these distance degree programs, or external degree programs, what we call external degree programs. So what is the mechanism in that respect? Then discusses about how the university engage with the outside community. If they do consultancies, what is the policy mechanism available in that respect? So all that is looked at here, right? Then final criterion is about the quality assurance processes conducted in the university through the Center for Quality Assurance, right? So now when you look at these things, you can understand this institutional review is looking at, will be reviewing in all three functions of the university, right? Educational provision. So that is where this curriculum development, teaching, learning, assessments, learning resources are reviewed. Postgraduate studies, research and commercialization relates to this. Then community engagement, outreach activities are looked at separately. So this governance and management, quality of the staff, quality assurance mechanisms are for all three activity. So basically this institutional review is institution-wide review as to whether the main functions of the university are carried out in line with the expected standards in terms of provision of education, research, community engagement, outreach and consultancy activities, right? So now, so I hope you have got an idea. So when they develop this SCR means prior to the institutional review, self-evaluation report has to be prepared. So when the self-evaluation report is prepared, the major part of the self-evaluation report is the university has to show how they have complied with each and every standard under the 10 criteria of the institutional review. So they have to state their compliance in one column. Then they have to present in the next column what are the available evidence, and these evidences should be coded and presented. So in the past, we used to give a lot of hard copy evidence, but now the UGC is, I think last couple of years, they were promoting, QAC was promoting the universities to have electronic, have their own electronic information provision. So they can, at least they can use a Google Drive and present the information, but organized in terms of the standards, right? Any questions or clarifications regarding the institutional review? Yes. Any questions or clarifications? Right, so you must have an idea about these things. Probably at this level, your participation may be minimum at a review. However, even if your participation is minimum, you must do it. You should do it with an understanding. What is the task that I am doing? Why am I engaged in this task? What is this review? Don't just follow what your seniors say. You must understand what is the institutional review, what is the purpose of the review, what is the role that I have to play in relation to that. So you can see this review is nothing but what we do in terms of education, research and outreach activities, community engagement and outreach, which are being assessed to ensure that we meet the expected standard. So this institutional review manual of the Quality Assurance Council gives 107 standards under 10 criteria. These 10 criteria relates to the main functions of the university. Standards present the expectation under each of these criteria. Then these best practices explain how to set up the systems, processes, activity functions within the university to align with these expected standards, right? Right. Yes, so you must ask questions, you must clarify things, right? Don't come just for the sake of marking the attendance, right? Because you all are, this is now often the lecturers scold the students that the students are not actively engaged in. So you must also take the responsibility. So you should know your role well. You should know the role of the university. What is your contribution to that? So it's not just getting the CTH qualification, right? It is, you have to understand how to do a proper academic role within the university to in alignment with the expected standards, right? So otherwise, what will happen is you will be just fulfilling the CTH requirement. You will do a lot of research. You will get promotions, but still you have not got a holistic view about your role in the university, right? Any questions or clarification? Surely you should have questions. ඔයගලන්ට මොනවද ප්‍රශ්න ගැටලු නැද්ද? Right, so initially we had 43, now it has fallen to 39. Don't just leave and don't be just invisible men and women in the classroom. So there was when we were small, there was a film, probably some, I don't know whether you all have watched. There was a story of invisible man, right? So all of a sudden that person disappears. So similarly, I hope you all are actively here, not just not that you are just switched on the software. Any questions or clarifications? Now, if I ask you, how do you, in simple terms, how do you explain the role of the institutional review? Now, in the institutional review, what is the unit of assessment? Unit of assessment is the
Institute or the university?
institute. Yes, the university or the higher education institute. So then, how to do, what are the areas that this review is focusing on?
10 minimum areas like
10 minimum
governance.
areas. Yes, so I write 10 minimum areas. So in this 10 minimum areas starts with governance and management, right? I don't want you to name all 10, but if you say in nutshell, if you categorize and say what is the focus of these 10 areas?
Curriculum.
Yeah, curriculum related, curriculum, teaching, learning, assessment, all that. Now this is the document. Now these yellow color areas focus on
Study programs.
study programs, particularly undergraduate level
Undergraduate.
study programs, right? So this seventh one, title
Postgrad.
itself implies what it is, postgraduate and research, right? Because now research pursuits of the university should be combined with the postgraduate studies, not the taught programs, but mainly the research-based study programs.
Professor,
And
sorry to interrupt
yeah,
you. I had to ask for this clarification. Now, according to what you described here, it's very comprehensive and very clear. Just that I got this question about how aren't we including our students in this process? Like you talked about student experience. I don't see under these 10, or maybe I'm mistaken. Where do we count them in? Like in foreign universities, of course, their views are taken into account. So is it, maybe my understanding is wrong here, but please clarify if you can.
yeah, student involvement is there under most of these areas. Now, can you remember when we discussed governance and management, I said, when the vision corporate
Yes.
plan is done, stakeholder analysis has to be carried out. So the
Yes.
students are main stakeholder group of the university.
Yes.
So university should set up the mechanism to get the views of the stakeholders. The main stakeholder group of a university is student. So there should be a mechanism where the students can express their views, right?
Now,
So
in
that
foreign
is-
universities, Professor, they normally publish a particular report where they rank the universities based on student, experience. But according to my knowledge, I don't think in local universities we
No,
have
that such
anything like.
ranking is not done
Yes,
in the in the
yes,
university system. But
yes.
even when the curriculum design and development is done,
Hmm.
student views has to be obtained. Now, why are you doing the student evaluation? That is a means of getting students' viewpoint about the courses of study as well as the delivery, the people,
Yeah.
teachers
Professor,
who deliver the courses.
I thought like the classroom feedback that we get, I thought like that's quite, minimum, at a very minimum basic level. So I was just wondering whether there are any higher level of
Oh,
student.
now actually now in our faculty, we have a faculty level mechanism. It's not that we randomly take.
Yes.
Every semester, a learning management based questionnaire is there. So
Uh-huh.
students will independently assess each and every course, and thereafter that feedback is evaluated and reported.
Okay, Professor, thank you very much.
Right. So it and now here even student support. Right. So what sort of support mechanisms are available for students? Educational support, welfare support, then mentoring of students, academic mentoring, counseling of students, all these requirements are presented. Under governance and management, grievance handling of students, right? The students' development of student charter, right? Even how to handle the disciplinary matters of students. All these need to have proper systems, right? So student involvement is essential, not that students rank, right? The university, but at each of every places, there are specific standards which capture how the students are involved in the educational process in terms of giving feedback, as well as how the students are involved in quality assurance mechanisms, right? Another thing is when the reviewers reviewers, now this is SCR is only a desk evaluation, right? So initially a desk evaluation is done. That desk means they have the report, they have the evidence, so they will check whether whether adequate evidence is given from authentic sources. Then they have, during this review process, they are talking to different groups of people. They talk to the academic staff, they talk to the students, they talk to the alumni, employers, etc. Right? So every faculty level they take a sample of students and talk to these students to get to know what they feel about the education processes, what are the improvements required, what is lacking. Those things also they consider. Like this is a triangulation of data that in a review process. It's not only documentary support is the initial form of analysis. Then they talk to these different groups during the review period. Usually it will take, that varies depending on, at minimum of 5 days the reviewers will spend. So during these 5 days, they are visiting, they do physical verification. Physically, the library, laboratories, those things they will be visiting. And also they will be talking to these different focus, they will be conducting focus group discussions. Right. Therefore, through different ways, the students feed. So that includes not only the documentary evidence of whether student feedback has been obtained or not, live discussion will be conducted with the students. So reviewers can always say, this is how I want to meet the students. It's within the discretion of the reviewers. So they can randomly pick the students that they want to talk. That opportunity is there for the reviewers. Hope I answered your question.
Yes, Professor, very clear. Thank you very much.
Right. So I did not go through this manual each and every segment, but I suggest all of you to go through. So if you want, I can share these manuals to the SPC, but what my suggestion for you all of you is to go to the Quality Assurance Council of UG's Quality Assurance Council in Sri Lanka. Right, so please, here there is a section on circulars and publications. So under that, if you go to publications, all these manuals are available, right? So it's just a matter of clicking the relevant section, you can download. Right? Right. I think now you got some idea about the institutional review. The next one is the program reviews. So program reviews is also the same procedure. There are 8 criteria. So this is the manual. What I'm presenting to you is available manual, which was introduced in 2015, but this manual will also be revised in the future. I think they are in the process of revising, but not the final version is not yet ready. So here, now they talk about program management, right? Now here the starting point is program management. Program management means the governance and management relevant to the study programs. Therefore, mainly this is not the university-wide management, but how the study programs are managed within a particular faculty. So certain university level policies will be applicable, but faculty level structures they are looking at. In addition, main focus would be that now something like examination bylaws. There are common bylaws for the university as well as some specific ones to the faculty. But university has one corporate plan, but within that corporate plan, action plans are available for the faculties of study. So then human and physical resources. Here again, human resource mainly refers to the quality of the academic staff. Physical resources, some are faculty level, some are at whole university, something like university library, right? You don't have libraries for each and every faculty, but you can have computer labs, language labs, skill labs, or the laboratories in science-based faculty, specific laboratories can be of under each faculty. Now, when you take this also, now this part, starting from program design to here, the focus is on how the curriculum is designed, developed of the study programs, and how the courses or modules within the study program are developed, the relevant teaching, learning, student support, and the assessment of students. And there's a separate section which deals with innovative and healthy practices, something that the organizations want to showcase, right? So we have this program manual. Right, so manual for review for undergraduate study program, which you can download. So these 8 areas are there. So under each of these areas, the requirements are there. So when you look at this manual and the IR manual, the formatting is different because IR has been updated by 2023. So in the future, this will also be updated accordingly. But at the moment, the requirements are presented in a different way, but still you can go through. So particularly the criteria, best practices presented first, thereafter the standard of assessment. But you can see in the revised IR manual, everything is presented under one in the same chapter, right? So you here so, yeah. So the criteria, best practices are presented here first. So under each of the criteria, the best practices are presented first. So under the 8 criteria and best practices first, after that only they give standards. Under each criteria, the relevant standards are given. So whether it is IR or SR, the scoring guide is the same, right? 0 to 3. Right, the process is also the same. Starts with the desk evaluation where the SCR of the institute in case of IR, here the SCR is prepared for the study program, right? So then you look at, then the reviewer will review the SCR of the study program with reference to the evidence at the desk evaluation level. Thereafter, they will be talking to different groups, students, teachers, external parties such as the employers, alumni, and thereafter they will be looking at, they will do a physical inspection of the various resources. So procedure is same, but only difference when it comes to program review is based on the study program level. So then an in-depth examination of the relevant study program will be done at this level. But when it comes to institutional level, they look at mainly the policies and procedures relevant to study program. But here, the detailed examination of each of the study programs will be carried out. Right. Are you clear? Any questions or clarifications regarding this, about this? Yes, so I'm expecting questions.
Yes, ma'am. It is clear.
Yeah.
The areas are clear for that.
Right. So anything, have you seen any institutional review manuals? Not manuals. Some of you all said that you were involved in institutional reviews.
Yes,
Have you?
Yes, I am from one of the private institute, and nowadays we are developing such manuals. Recently, we submitted these documents to UGC, ma'am. We have some kind of familiarization with this process.
Mm-mm. Good. Yeah, now this is the last institutional review of the University of Sri Jayewardenepura was held in 2017. This is the manual that, this is the self-evaluation report we prepared, but this was done based on the previous manual, but IR manual, but the same criteria. The revision has been made only in terms of the number of standards. Those days there were 143 standards, so people had a lot of concerns about some other things are repetitive, not clear like that. So that is why each and every standard was looked at, and where possible amalgamations were done. And if something is not really required, or if it can be captured by something else, those were eliminated. So accordingly, the number of standards were reduced to 107. So you can see in this review, we first prepared, we had to give usually the section 1 is dedicated to provide an introduction to the university. Thereafter, under each of the criterion, we have to present adherence to standards under each of the criteria, and evidence should be coded and presented. So those days, the requirement was different because we had to give a separate section on conclusions and current actions. There are certain variations in the structure of the report, but whatever the variations, now this will be the main part of the report, where we will have to explain how we have complied with each and every standard, and that has to be supported with evidence, right? So the first section is generally the explanation about the university and how the self-evaluation report was generated. Now in the second part, you can see we first give the standard, then we explain how the university has adhered to standard, then the documentary evidence, then we have to explain. These documents have to be coded. Even if you give them in electronic form, they will have to coded and presented in terms of folders. Therefore, this coding, we will have to present what is the form of coding that we have used. Right. Right. So, yeah. So this is, but I'm not sure whether this university Ministry of Higher Education is following the same manuals when they do IR and PR for the non-state higher education institutes. But for the university system, actually these manuals are for universities as well as non-state higher education institute, but I'm not sure at what level these are being implemented at higher non-state higher educational institute, because in Sri Lanka we have only public universities, all other degree awarding institute and private sector degree awarding institutions which are falling under the category of non-state higher education institutes, right? So now this is the example of a self-evaluation prepared for a university, right? Yeah. Yes, Sri Lanka Institute of Textiles and Apparel, is it a university or a non-state higher education institute? Are you falling under the UGC?
No, non-state higher education institute, ma'am.
Non-state, yeah. So then you will not fall under the UGC. You will be monitored through the Ministry of Higher Education. There's a separate division, non-state higher education. Yes. Right. So this is the example of institutional level. Let me also show you a program review document. Right. Right. So this is the program review self-evaluation report that we prepared for the study program. Our department, my department, Department of Accounting. So now you can see this is not for the whole institution. This is for the accountancy study program, right? So again, the first section of the report, if I go through this, yeah, let me reduce the size here. Now the first section of this report is introduction to the study program, not the introduction to the institute, right? Then section 2, the SCR preparation process is presented. Now this third section is compliance with criteria and standards. So under each of the standard, we will have to explain how we have complied with, right? So you can see program management. First, we will have to give the standard number. Then we have to explain how we have complied with that evidence and the coding system we have adopted. So this, for a study program level, this is the document we prepare. Now you can see the formats are quite similar. The difference in institutional review, we prepare the self-evaluation for the whole university, which will capture all the faculties, institutes and units. But when it comes to program review, it is about a particular study program. Then the review is only on that particular study program, and in-depth assessment of the study program will be done. But at the institutional level, assessment is policies and procedures for education, research, and community engagement activities of the whole university, covering all the faculties, institutes, and units. So at that level, They won't go into the details of each and every study program because program review will be conducted separately. And also you can, and for the in addition to that, we have a PG manual as well, right? So for the postgraduate degree programs, there is a separate manual. This is the manual for review of postgraduate study program. So basically, you can see the criteria are similar. Only difference is the postgraduate programs are reviewed at this level. That is, programs played at SLQA 7 and above, right? So program management. So ideally, each study program need to be reviewed in a program review. So you can see when you look at these criteria, criteria are similar, right? Whether it is undergraduate or postgraduate, same criteria. Program management, program design and development, human and physical resources, like that. But basically, this manual will focus on PG programs. Right. So, and for the external degrees, there are separate manuals. If you're open university, because their entire educational provision system is different, they have a separate manuals even for institutional review as well as for the program reviews, right? That's all about the program review. Now, in your opinion, now when you do these reviews, now what are the challenges that you would be facing as you think? What sort of challenges will you be facing? Now, when you are conducting this quality assurance, right. So what sort of challenges that you will be facing when you conduct quality assurance activities in your faculties? Time, right? So what is the time? What is the time issue?
Academics will have to dedicate a lot of their time in involving in these review processes. So they may not have adequate time to carry out their academic work, research work, publication, and all of that.
All right. So you think time will be a problem? Any other problem? Getting support from all the departments. Lack of support, right? So lack of support from whom? Whose support is insufficient? Whose support?
Madam, distance learning, when we compare to the distance learning, how this will affect the calculations of notional hours and everything? Is it similar?
It is same.
But in case of practicals and all, it's not so practical to do the distance learning through some of
Yeah,
those
can you
development.
do? Yeah, it's now. So you have the institutes have to develop their own mechanisms in this respect. If you're doing that now, if it is totally ODL type like Open University, the requirements could be different because they have separate manuals, but SLQF requirements will not be different because their mode of education itself is distance learning, right? But they have day schools, the students have to submit assignments. So if it is a 3 credit course, there should be volume of learning relevant to 3 credit activity, but there the direct contact will be much lower, right? Because mostly they have distance learning mechanisms, right? But there can be, now today with the technology, even delivery can be done. That's not difficult thing. And now Open University is having science degrees as well. So they in that case, the students they have to have dedicated time for students to come and engage in laboratory activity, because you can't do such things. So that is why these regional centers are made available for them. There are various practical sessions they will have to participate. They have to come for several days. They organize day schools. So such facilities are made available. Because that case, now unlike in other universities, the students are not required to come to the university every day. That's true. But then depending on your mode of learning, they will have to now design the systems accordingly. Now,
That
if it
means
is
they have already designed, madam, but in case of a sudden community outbreak, we also have to shift to that system. Na? In such case, how do we adopt the system? So
yeah,
something
so if you
like
are doing,
COVID-19, because we are not planning for the online mode, but we have already planned for the physical mode, suddenly we have to shift. So in that case, do we have to reschedule everything or recalculate everything?
then even during COVID-19, didn't you all do lectures?
We did, but then it is not the actual contact lecture hours and practicals as we plan. So then as our planning and our
Yeah, so
scheduling is
that is
different.
of course a different scenario. That is not a normalized situation. COVID-19 was an unexpected situation, right? So during that time, certain things we were not in a position to do. That's true, because that was a health hazard. And due to that health issue, the students could not be brought into the university, right? But in that case, sometimes these laboratory activities, things like that get disturbed. Yes, I do agree. But in a normal circumstances, if you're if you're conducting a distance mode degree program, I don't think so you have to have a proper mechanism for that. Otherwise, you should not go for distance education. So that is why these reviews have a separate section. So distance mode, then instructional manuals should be developed. Those should be made available for students. There should be a learning management systems. So now today people are even in one country, but they are following degree programs in another country. So in that case, even they do engage in studies. So even in such a situation, you cannot say that you have a different system for distance mode, because distance mode means it's an alternative mode of delivery. But other requirements, that is the mode of delivery only differs. But the rest of the things should align with should be the same. That is what I'm trying to say. Do you get my point? Distance, now it can be on campus. Students may come into the campus and do the studies, or they may adopt off-campus mode, distance learning. So if you adopt, that is an alternative delivery mode, but the degree program would be the same. Right? Do you?
Okay, ma'am.
So the institutes will have to go for mechanisms, right? They have to establish. Right. So there are, yes. So always now give me a second.
Hello, Dejo. ඔව් අනේ මිසි අද ගෙදර ඒ වුණාට ඉන්නේ ඔන්ලයින් ක්ලාස් එක යනවා ඒක තාගෙන මහන්න. එනම් බාගය. අනේ එන්න බෑ කියලා කියන්න අදා කරන්නේ. නේද? ඔව් දැන් ටග්ගල එවිට යන්නේ.
Right. So the only I have given discuss now quality assurance itself. There are quite a lot of challenges because there are diversities in the discipline. Sometimes our values will differ based on the disciplinary areas. Commitment could also be different. I do agree. But only thing you all have to keep in mind is don't think quality assurance as something additional. So if you train yourself to do things as per these expected standards right from the beginning, then it will become part and parcel of what you do, right? So when you develop your program specification, follow this. Initial point, sometimes getting used to that is difficult. But after that, once you get used to that, then it is a common approach, which is it is something that you will be doing continuously in terms of particular standard, right? Therefore, don't think this as something totally the most of the time I think the problem is people think this is something you have to do additional, but always, even when you are developing a course specification, follow the proper system. Then you will get used to that, and you will get used to maintain the required standards relevant expected in the SLQF, SBS, etc. So please understand quality assurance is not something different than not something totally different. However, it is something that it is part and parcel of the things that we do. It may relate to delivery of courses, assessment of courses, devising learning activities, but it is to do it as per the expected standards, right? So that is the point you need to understand. And always, when you do respect the diversity, because you must always understand people coming from different discipline areas, different backgrounds. So you have to listen to what others say. And like that diversity, you must acknowledge, right? Don't try to have uniform system right throughout. But what matters is follow the proper procedures as part and parcel of what you do in the university, right? And don't think only about your course, your degree, or what you are supposed to do. Now, curriculum is for the degree, not only about the courses that you teach or that you are involved in assessment. So most of the time, people say, my course, my courses, my work. No, it is a holistic, you have to know that you are contributing to a particular study program or several study program, and always maintain evidence for what you do. Now, for if every year you can have a separate folder for the courses that you teach. Now, let's say if you are teaching one course, that course you can have a separate folder. So week wise, your lecture material, learning activities given to students, assessment activities, you can maintain in that folder. Next year when you do it again, same folder, 2024, you have a subfolder. For 2023, you have subfolder week wise. 2024, you have a subfolder for week wise. So then you have all the things relevant to the courses that you teach under separate folders, year-wise, as well as semesters and week-wise. So you have everything with you. So it's up to you have to develop a system to manage that, right? So please develop a system where you maintain your evidence, so that will also help you to continuously improve yourself and have discussions with your colleagues, share your ideas, maintain reflections of what you are doing, right? Right, so next I want to discuss a little bit on this accreditation in higher education. Again, give me 2 minutes. Right, sorry for... Right. So I will roughly tell you this, sorry for disruption. There's unexpected problem that I have faced at my personal level. That is why I had to in between stop this lecture. I'm extremely sorry for that. I will briefly explain you all this accreditation process, and after that I will stop a little early because someone at home has fallen sick. So I may have to go to the hospital now. Therefore, I will give a brief explanation about the accreditation and how it is related with assurance, but specific details I will do a small video and send you all. I hope it will be all right with you all. Sorry for the inconvenience, please.
No problem, ma'am. Sure.
No problem.
Sure. It's not fine.
So this this part accreditation onwards, I will briefly touch that and then I will do a video of that. So now what we discussed so far is only a systematic review of the educational provision within the university. But through this review, the reviewers will look at to what extent the standards have been complied with. Accordingly, marks are given and finally a grade is given. But that is not an accreditation as such. That is a mechanism where recommendations are provided as to how to, certain recommendations are made to improvement of the degree program. So they will give commendations, highlight the deficiencies, and the recommendations are provided after giving the mark. But accreditation is a form of external assurance where the degree programs or an institution will be accredited by an external body after a review. So it is a condition that is bestowed on an organization so that then it says this program is accredited based on these standards, and that accreditation will be available for 3 years or 5 years. After that, again, the organizations will have to get it accredited. It's like this ISO certification process. So it is a form of external quality assurance, but the ultimate objective is to accredit an institution or study program with reference based on a set of standards, right? So it is more stringent process than of a normal, these institutional reviews and the program reviews that we do, right? So the difference between the two areas is quality assurance is a planned systematic review process of an institution or program with reference to a set of predetermined standards to assess the status of the education provision of a university, including its scholarship and infrastructure. But accreditation is where some recognition or credit is granted to an organization for a specific period, and again after for a specific period, on completion of that period, they will be given again the reassessed, and they will be accredited or not, right? In the Sri Lankan context, only the quality assurance is done. Quality assurance reviews are done. Accreditation is not done at the moment. But with SLQF certification, some form of accreditation is done in terms of SLQF certification, right? So this accreditation also is carried out in different forms: academic accreditations, professional accreditations. Even within the institutions also accreditation can happen in foreign universities. Internal accreditation is also carried out, right? So that part with examples I will explain, and I will post a video. I will share the video with the Staff Development Center. I'm extremely sorry for the inconvenience caused to you. So I will, for the time being, I will share this slideshow. If you need any further clarifications, please send an email to this email address. So it will be there in my slideshow, right? Right. So I will stop the session. I don't know whether anyone is there at the Staff Development Center, but I will write to them about the details. Right. So thank you very much for your participation. So as I always say, don't think quality assurance is something additional work that you are supposed to do. It's part and parcel of what you do. What we do, we learn to do in terms of accepted standards, right? So that what we do will be recognized by the stakeholders, and it will build up confidence on the work that we do. And also it's a means of improving ourselves, right? So organize yourself, get the value, take the essence of quality assurance, right? Thank you very much. Once again, I will send the balance part as a video, right?
Thank you, madam.
madam.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Right.